All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Connecting the Pack. In today's episode, I am unfortunately not joined by my co-host, Veronica, but hopefully for future episodes, she will be my co-host and we'll be having a conversation with our wonderful guests. But for today, I am joined by Norkplim Mattah, right?
Yes.
That's how it's pronounced. All right, that's good. So Norkplim is a graduate student here at NC State University, and she comes from Ghana. And today we're gonna try to talk about her past life in Ghana and some of the intricacies of why she decided to show up to the United States and pursue a graduate level, a graduate degree rather. And so I'm very honored to be joined by Norkplim. Norkplim, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm very interested to know, obviously, more about the decision you made that brought you to the United States of wanting to pursue a graduate degree here at NC State. But I'm also interested in knowing more about your past life in Ghana. So how about you share with me and the audience a little bit about your maybe college life in Ghana
Yeah.
and what you did after sort of graduation.
Yeah. So the last of three, right? So we're four. And I mean, I had first intended to go to college and read law, but my
In the wheat lore?
and read law. Sorry, like
Read law.
yeah, law.
Okay.
Like I wanted to be a law student, be a lawyer, and all of that. That had always been the plan, even in my high school. But I think when I finished high school, I got home and then I met my sister, who was my elder sister, who is reading law at that time.
Okay.
And I looked at her and I was like, oh my God, this is not for me. I don't know why,
Okay.
but something just snapped. I was like, no, I don't want to do this now. If I want to do it in the future, that's fine. But now, I was like, I'm too young to be doing all of this. So I decided to divert a bit. So I got into University of Ghana and then went to read political science, French and Spanish.
Political science, French, and Spanish. Okay,
yes.
Did you hear that, audience?
No.
Political science, French, and Spanish.
Well, in Ghana, so how it is for some of the schools is you enter with three different paths, and then so political science, French, and Spanish, and then by their second year you can drop one and then either do a combined major or have one major, one minor, however you want to do it.
Okay.
Right? So that's for the humanities college. That's how it's usually done there. So I entered with political science, French, and Spanish, and then by second year I wanted to focus on languages, so I focused on French and Spanish. So then I did my my undergrad in French and Spanish.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you speak French and Spanish?
I do.
Oh, my Lord. I should have included that in the intro. We have a multilingual guest here.
So I think I think my first interest in international studies and relations came from my year abroad. So I did my year abroad in Spain, Zaragoza, which is very beautiful.
Oh, my.
And I was one of the unlucky people to happen to experience COVID on my year abroad. So I traveled 2019 and by 2020 that was like the first like big hit of COVID. So we had to do our classes online and it was interesting. So that meant having to I was experiencing this new phenomenon with everybody else, but in an unfamiliar space. I didn't have family with me. I mean, we were a group of students, but I wasn't living with any of the Ghanaian students. I moved into an apartment with Spaniards.
Yeah.
So that was nice. But then till when COVID hit, I mean, they had families. So, I mean, once they could travel, they left and I was alone in the apartment. And so then I started, I was speaking with other Ghanaian friends and who were doing their year abroad in France and everything. And the conversation started centering around how we would go home.
Mm.
And I found it interesting because then I realized that for the French students, the department, which I think is a bit more composed than the Spanish department, had started putting like measures in place and all of that for them to go back home. So they had spoken to like the airlines, KLM, and other stuff, right? So they had like a sort of like escape plan for the students. But then for us the Spanish students, we didn't seem to have anyone. So I reached out because before we left, they had made me the leader for the Spanish students who traveled to Zaragoza. So I reached out to the Ghanaian embassy. There was a guy we had been in contact with, right? And then we're like, oh, this is a situation, and like school is over, so we are thinking of how we would come back home because I mean we can't stay here forever.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so he was not really helpful,
Oh, God.
which was so disappointing because we are foreign nationals in an unknown country we don't know what anything's about.
Mm.
And so he was trying, but I don't think he even knew how to go about any of it. So
Gosh.
I mean, we were talking about evacuation flights and all of that, and they're like, okay, so when he hears of something or like anything coming up, he would let us know. I was like, okay, that's cool. And sometimes he would call me like maybe on a Tuesday that, oh, so there's an evacuation flight on Friday, right? And it's it's in the Netherlands, it's in Amsterdam. You have to, and so the most he can do is get you on the Amsterdam flight. But so he basically telling me that you would have to find your way to Amsterdam, which I found.
Oh my God.
I didn't understand. Did he want me to walk there from Spain? So it was just so I took the initiative and I was like, no, this can't be like our story.
Mm-hmm.
So after speaking with the Ghanaian students in France and understanding theirs, I reached out to their coordinator. I was like, oh, I mean, we're all year-abroad students, so let's just hop on the bandwagon. And I was like, okay, so this is our situation and this is what we are going through. Can you help us? It was like, oh yeah. So I then forgot the Ghanaian
Okay.
embassy in Spain and started coordinating with the French coordinator, right?
Yeah.
Danielson, a really helpful guy.
Mm-hmm.
So then that's how I think we were about 15 or 16 students and managed to get all of us like on return flights back to Ghana. So that was the dynamic the first. I was like, this is like an international thing. And I mean, it was about coordinating flights, coordinating when people wanted to return. Some people had return tickets. Some people had purchased one way so that when they're coming back, they'll purchase their ticket back. So it was a lot of like coordination on the international level and speaking to like the airlines and all of that. So I think that was what first piqued my interest. I was like, this is something I like to like explore, like how we are relating on an international level.
Right.
Because there was us in Spain, us in France, and then even Ghana, even the university, right? Trying to make sure that when we came back, because when we came back, you had to quarantine for 14 days and all of that. So all the logistics involved and everything. It was just interesting to experience COVID.
Mm.
So I was in Spain. Then after they started letting up travel and everything, I went to France to stay with my auntie because I wanted to be around family. So I left France to Ghana. So it was interesting to experience COVID. I like to say I'm one of the few people who experienced COVID in 3 different countries and 2 different continents.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I was in Spain, then I went to France, then I went to Ghana. So it was such a sharp contrast to come back home and to see like, the European countries would they had like these strict rules, nobody should come out and all of those things. And I came to Ghana, it was just like a party.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, to see that like the estimate for Ghana for the COVID cases, it was amazing to know that we didn't like African countries didn't really like hit the kind of margins the Western were.
Yeah.
But I really I don't know if we are just lucky because nothing about what we're doing should have saved us.
Right,
We should
right.
have been in the millions. But it was nice. So it was very interesting. So that was what like really first piqued my interest.
In
like
international
in
studies.
international studies.
my God.
Yeah.
But let me just backtrack a little bit here because there's so much to unpack. Oh my goodness. Okay. So for Spain, when did you have to evacuate? Can you draw an estimate
Yes,
of
I actually left on my birthday. I actually even missed my flight.
really?
Yes, because I had to get from Zaragoza to Madrid, which is so I left on the 4th of July.
4th of July.
Yeah.
Independence Day.
I know. I'm looking forward to 4th of July fireworks
Oh yeah,
next
yeah.
year.
And hopefully you get to go to DC and see them over there.
I hope so. Yeah, so I left on the 4th of July and got to France. So the idea was when like I was speaking with my dad and family, and they were like, because I don't really have family in Spain, the idea was to go somewhere where I had family, because then they wouldn't have to worry about how am I feeling. If they can't reach me, at least I'm staying with someone they know. But back in Spain, I was living with Spaniards. I had like no other family. So if maybe I fell sick in the apartment, nobody could have come to like take a look. Oh, hey, what's going on with you? Or like, how are you feeling? Like there was no, I was the only point of contact for my family. So that's another thing most people don't realize about like international, like traveling abroad to study. If there isn't a community, it's become such a like abstract notion that you're on your own.
Right.
So the idea was, because they weren't sure about how long the pandemic would go and how long lockdown would be. The moment, the very moment they said, "Oh, we are lifting sanctions on travel and everything," I was like on the first plane. I was like, "Okay,
You're like,
adios."
capitalize on the opportunity.
Yes, before they shut down again.
Right.
Yeah, so it was, the idea was to just be around family that would be like, okay, yeah. So if at least once I was with family, there was no stress about rent or about when I'll be returning, because then I was like, okay, I will be here till I can go back home. Yeah, I was lucky that I had family in Europe. Some people didn't, so they had to like stay and wait till the evacuation was due. Yeah.
And do you remember how it was to be in lockdown in Spain, in a different country, for like 5 or 6 months? I mean, how and being with people that were not technically part of your community, as you alluded to earlier. Like, how did that feel? What was, when you look back at those memories, how would you describe them?
It was nice. So, one thing about me is I'm sort of an introvert, right? So, when I go out, I try, I'm like, okay, so I go out once a day. When I go and I come back home, for you to get me to go out again, it's going to take a lot. So it was nice. It was nice to be indoors, right? At the beginning, I had my roommates with me. And by that time, I had gotten pretty good in Spanish. So we could hold conversations. We could be laughing and everything. Yeah. So when they left, I would give grace to my family, my sisters. Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
They called every single day. Every day.
They cared.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If you see me on campus and I'm on the phone, most likely I'm talking to my sisters. Like just on like the most random stuff, and we just be talking.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think they understood the fact that because I had told them my roommates had left. So I think they understood the fact that I was alone. So they tried not to make me feel alone. But I don't think, I never felt alone because they always called. But I wouldn't know. But maybe if they hadn't been calling, I don't know, I maybe have been fine.
Wow.
Because I'm an introvert. But it was interesting because, we're mostly indoors. And then I don't know if you know about this thing where Europe had a thing where at I think 8:00 every day they would come out at their windows and like their balconies and everything, and like clap for the health workers and all the people working during the pandemic. Yeah. So that ended up becoming the highlight of my day, actually. I was actually looking forward every day to it. Wow. Where you come out and we're all just clapping. It was really like, I know other countries did it, so it was really nice to see like the appreciation for like that level of commitment that the frontliners were putting.
Gosh, yeah. We didn't do any of that, actually. Another thing you guys did down in in Ghana, right?
Did we? No, I
Okay,
don't
you guys
know.
are partying.
Oh
busy
yes, I
partying.
mean, oh my goodness, Ghana. They were
Oh.
just, I love Ghana, and I'm like, you're just lucky.
Yeah.
To some degree, I think the number of documented cases may have been more, but most people like just treated themselves off. Like,
Wow.
yeah.
Gosh, my story was I was I remember I was in Lebanon at the time when COVID hit, and I remember the program that funded me and other international students
Mm-hmm.
was telling us that we have to send you guys back home,
Mm-hmm.
and so my friends and I were obviously, we were in a state of chaos in a way because we didn't really know what was happening, and we didn't even know if we were going to come back
Mm-hmm.
anytime soon. And
Yeah.
so, they book us our tickets. I end up going with, a few good friends of mine who
Mm.
are traveling to Tunisia, and some other friends from Libya who were also going back to Libya. So we had our own sort of clique,
Yeah.
and I remember we established a sort of like a WhatsApp group where we would share with each other what sort of what we were feeling
Mm-hmm.
when we go back home in terms
Mm-hmm.
of maybe apparent symptoms. And so actually what was even the scariest moment of it all was when I had to go back home to Libya and land in a city that was in a very tough spot at the time because there
Mm.
was a huge conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And when I landed, just to give a little bit more context, this particular airport where I landed used to be a hangar, a military hangar.
Oh.
Yeah. So I land, and it was in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
I think around 10 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the people that landed already had family members waiting for them.
Mm.
But I think I was the only person that didn't, because my parents couldn't come and pick me up simply because of how dangerous it was to drive from the capital city where I'm from to this particular city where I landed. And so I think the scariest moment was having to spend approximately 10 hours in that military hangar where it was completely dark outside, and I was probably the only one there. I swear to God.
Oh
It
my
was
god.
one of the scariest moments in my life. And I was 19.
Oh my
So I
god.
slept with one eye open. And I just kept, just looking at the clock, waiting and waiting until my father arrived. But that was a very scary moment. And
Yeah.
then when I went back to the capital where I'm from and my father arrived, I kept checking up on my friends and the ones that I traveled with.
Yeah.
And I vividly remember one of them saying that she woke up throwing up. And I was like, this isn't happening. And so what I did
Yeah.
was I tried to hide all of that from my parents. And I would
Yeah.
wake up every morning and I would have a spoon of olive oil because I thought this would do something.
Wow. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
thank goodness I didn't get COVID at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was a crazy time.
Yeah, it was. My goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you go back to Ghana, and then it must have been a completely different world. It's as if COVID didn't exist, right?
Yeah. So I mean, because I was supposed to go and continue my undergrad because it was a year abroad, so
Mm.
like almost like a gap year. I think they call it here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But this time, like it was credited, so it was part of my grades. Yeah.
Mm.
So going back to Ghana, I had to sort of wait
Yeah.
because the school system, like they weren't sure about how to reopen, and they were contemplating because they couldn't have all undergrads and masters and everybody back on campus, so they kept delaying like reopening and everything. So I mean, I was like, okay, then maybe I'll just find something to do. So I ended up doing like an internship at the bank
Wow.
just to have a feel of like a work experience.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, corporate, like something like this is not really for me. Yeah,
It's
so
not everybody's cup of tea.
no, yeah, so it was interesting. And then after that, so when school finally I think reopened by end of 2020, beginning of 2021.
Oh.
Yeah, so I got back to Ghana in 2020. I went back for my final year in 2021. And then after that, it was about like I graduated, I think, sometime in November, but I was done with school like August.
Wow.
Right, yeah. So it was like a long semester. It was like a long semester that they just divided into two, sort of, just to get like us out of the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was it vastly different from the system that was in place in Spain when you were in college in Spain?
Well, yeah, yeah, because I mean, for Spain, I think the teachers didn't really have a problem diverting to like an online a fully online system or like a fully online class. But I found that in Ghana, I mean, because Spain is in Europe, basically, I mean, the internet is much better. So,
Right.
yeah. But in Ghana, you have people joining on like bad internet and Wi-Fi and all of that. So I think even to some degree, even having test online and everything with the schools, like official, like their version of Moodle, yeah, was interesting. And I mean, me as a language student, if it was the first semester, some of the teachers had decided, oh, they wanted to do online exams and online this and online that. And I think, I don't know if it was a level of trust, but they weren't impressed by how many people were passing.
Oh my goodness.
So I think by the next semester, they were like, no, everybody's going to. So even if we do online classes, you're going to write like your paper, because some of them had to do like translation and all of that. So I think maybe they thought, oh, so because we didn't have to do it like in a lab or something. You could be at home or anywhere and then be doing it.
Really?
So I was sharing, by my final year, I was sharing a room with my classmate. Like we're both doing French and Spanish. So when the time for exams comes, I'm on my laptop, she's on her laptop. And then we like the questions, I mean, are a bit jumbled up, but then you could figure out like at some point that,
Right.
oh, I've had this question already. This is the answer or something like that.
Sharing
and
notes.
Yes. So I think maybe I honestly believe that the overall maybe students did too well. Which I don't know if people know about African communities. The lecturers prefer to fail than to pass. I mean, they pride themselves in saying, yeah, like if it's a class of 100, yeah, 50 people failed my class.
They take pride in that.
Yeah. So I think they were not too happy about it because, yeah, so even in the translation exam, when I submitted, the teacher was like, yeah, it looked like you use a translator. I was like, no, this is me. And he was like, really? So I had to go back and see him. And then I think what helped was like, because I had been getting good grades. It wasn't like out of context in a sense.
Oh yeah. It wasn't like an isolated incident.
Yeah. So he was like, okay, yeah, then maybe you are not like, but I think there was just not much trust. So by the second semester, every exam was like physical. They didn't care about COVID. And maybe by 2021, I think the vaccines had started rolling out. I don't really remember.
Yeah, I think it was mid, because I remember taking my shot in mid 2021, or actually both shots. Yeah, and then I went on an exchange semester in the fall of 2021. So I think you're right, around that time.
Yeah. So by then, they were like either right. So they were trying to like gap us in the exam halls, and then they were like, everybody wear a mask. We don't really care. We just want you to write it in front of us. Which was the difference. So yeah, then after that, I had to so you graduate and you have to think about work and all of that. So in Ghana, we have this thing where most people after graduating from the universities, we have a thing called national service.
National service.
Yes.
Is that like military conscription
No,
oh boy, it's far from it.
It's completely far. Yeah, I mean, I know how it sounds like it's military, but no. So it's it was basically a service after. So unlike here, and I don't know how it works in other countries, but the idea behind it is students fresh out of like universities who don't have any like support or don't have any connections to actually land the job. What the national service does is it helps you like integrate into like the workforce. So it's basically like they'll post you somewhere or like all over Ghana, right? Some people are lucky to stay in Accra, which is the capital. Some people get like remote, like really remote villages and stuff like that to go and work in.
Oh.
But it used to be like according to your field, but I think now they just randomly pick some stuff and just put anybody anywhere. So what happens is a lot of like private companies also started using that to recruit people, right? So organizations and everybody. So you could just put out like a flyer that, oh, we are recruiting for national service. So it's sort of like a stepping stone, because some people when they enter the national service get retained like full time. Right, yeah. So for me, the option was to become a
TA.
Yes.
At a university, teacher assistant?
Yes, in the Spanish department. But then I don't really want to be a teacher. I wasn't really interested in that because I wanted to explore international organizations and international relations. So I had been looking out for applications and stuff like that. And then I saw one from the British High Commission in Ghana asking for staff or like national service personnel. And so I applied to the consular section.
Oh, wow. That's fancy.
Yeah. And then that is how I, like after graduating, I moved into the workforce. So my first year was with the British High Commission.
The British High Commission. So the British High Commission...
the British Embassy.
British Embassy. I was going to say, is it a consulate or British Embassy that you guys had?
Yeah, but because it's the Commonwealth, so they call them, Commonwealth nations call each other High Commissions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, what can you maybe describe to us the process of getting into that and how it was like for you to be working with them?
Yeah, so it was a pretty rigorous process. You had to apply. They had like some set of questions you had to answer and all of that, and send in your application. Then after that, they shortlist like I think a group of 5 or 6 students, 6 people, and then you get called for an interview.
Yeah.
So then there was the interview phase. I had to I think they sent us some like how the interviews are asked, like how, because I think the idea was most of us haven't, because I didn't really have that much interview experience, so it was really helpful. So I prepared, I did the interview. Apparently I really aced it.
Nice.
Yeah, so then they then after I think a month or 2, they go back to me that, oh, they're offering me the job and all of that. So
Wow.
I was really happy about it because it was in a field I was interested in. So for a year I was with the consular section, and so in the British High Commission, the visa and the consular section are completely different. In other embassies, is joint. So
Okay.
yeah, so the consular section mainly handles British national issues. So if you have people who come to, so basically what the Ghanaian embassy should have done when we were in Spain.
Right.
Yes.
I love how you're connecting the dots here.
Yeah. So sorry. Yeah. So they so it was I would say the most stressful year of my life.
Very stressful.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
So it's looking at it this way. Think of it as a group of people who know that you're supposed to help them, who demand that you help them, and who do not understand when you don't want to help them.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a hard pill to...
So it was a lot. It was because we had love frauds. We had people come to Ghana and who had been promised like a girlfriend or something, and they got here and it was a fraud.
Oh.
We had people come and be robbed. We had people come and be assaulted, and we had people also come and just be like straight up annoying.
And what is the nationalities people that are coming?
Only British, Ghanaians, British, Nigerians. So you just had to have a British nationality. That's the only, like, that was the only caveat for us helping you. You just had to be British. You don't have to have British residency. You have to be a citizen of the Great Britain. So yeah. So which was very interesting. So to me, it was like coming from a place where the dynamic was just, oh my God. I was like, Ghana, you guys are slacking, because it was interesting to see like this was the help they could offer. Somebody could come in. So the idea was, they were like, you've come into a country and you don't know what like the place is about. So the idea was they wanted to be a point of contact that you could talk to. So it wasn't like they were going to help you, but they could guide you in the right process. If you've been robbed, they could go like, okay, so you have to report to this and do that. So that was basically the main job. And
wait, the job of let's maybe paint a clear picture here.
Yeah, for the consular section was mainly to provide assistance to British nationals.
Oh, but the Ghanaians didn't know that service was not for them.
Yeah. So I mean, you had people come, and then you had people come like from trying to like get visas and stuff like that. But I think the point I was trying to make was, it was interesting to see that this service was available to citizens of a country, and it's coming from a place where the embassy didn't really have that. Like, that was the contrast for me. I was like, so for British people, when they go to any country, they just have to find the nearest embassy or high commission,
right, and
then figure themselves out from there. So I think that was what made me want to even explore that more, and to understand why certain embassies would like be this helpful, and you have certain embassies who would just be like, yeah, you're on your own, do whatever you want to do. Yeah. So that year was really, oh my goodness, wow, the stories I have.
Well, share with us. We're ready to hear one or two of these stories.
Let me pick the most the most interesting.
Yeah, or the most annoying.
Oh, there was this I think 80-year-old guy who had come on the idea of love. He apparently had found love in Ghana, right? And it's the weirdest thing. So he arrived, and then he was
and he was from
the UK.
Okay.
Right? So he arrived and had decided that he wanted to he's come because the person he's talking to online says let's finally meet, let's take our relationship to the next level. And he gets here and realizes this is a scam. But the guy refused to go back. Oh my God.
Really?
He did not want to go back. So apparently he was like, he had found a beach hotel and he was staying at, and I think he got bored to some degree and then called the police and said that he had been kidnapped. So
okay.
And then the police had to investigate, and they found him like just chilling, drinking beer and stuff like that. So they got upset. So then they arrested him that it was he had made a false claim and stuff like that. So they were going to put him in jail. So we had to come in, and my boss, she was so sweet. She was really fast enough to go like, no, don't arrest this guy. He has a mental issue. So could we just take him back? So to avoid any issues, because having British nationals in prison is a lot of work and a lot of stuff. So we usually try to make sure that prison is the last option for the nationals. We try to make sure that no matter what has happened, if they are in the wrong, the idea is to try to find middle ground so that it doesn't go like, there are some scenarios where like there is no middle ground, like they were caught smuggling drugs, or like they have committed some sort of like murder or something, right? There's no middle ground. You're going straight to jail. But then for some offenses, it was pardonable, and you could go like, oh no, this person is mentally deranged or something like that, or like mentally unstable. Let me say that, right? Yeah. Sorry, I don't want to offend anyone.
It's okay.
Yeah. So that was the idea. So for him, we had to like convince the Ghanaian police that, oh no, look at this man. Like really, he really isn't so all up there. So they're like, okay, then they can't release him to like just be. So they sent him for like a psych eval and like a medical evaluation at the hospital. So in the hospital, I was sent to visit him and then like get the information so that we could get him back to the UK. And this man was just uncooperative at every turn, right? Because the British have this thing where they call it an emergency travel document. So it basically means that when you travel, which I know was another thing I never knew till I worked there. Because when you travel and you lose your passport, you could ask for that. And then they would cancel the passport in their system and issue you a travel document. So it was like a it would look like a passport, but it was like a one-time travel document. So you tell them that if maybe, let's say you were going to the US and you go back to the UK, they would issue that passport for you and you use it. By the time you get to the UK, they'll take it back from you.
Interesting.
And I never knew that.
Huh.
Africans travel with their passport as the most valuable commodity they are traveling with, because if you lose it, oh my God, you would spend months trying to get another one. So it was
that applies to us as well.
I'm like, what? It was so, and we had this like during so in the month of June and July, when a lot of them travel like for summer vacation, we had over 100 applications a day. So they're just losing their passports.
The British.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. In Ghana?
Yes. It's the weirdest thing. So I mean, if maybe your passport application is like delaying, you could apply for that. But most of the applications were people who have come and have misplaced their passports. I'm like, this could never fly. Me, a Ghanaian, when I travel, I know where my passport is at all times.
Right.
Because I cannot afford to lose it. So that was another interesting thing to compare. I was like, wow, this is really nice. So I think the idea was, with a system that is working really well for you, no matter where you go, you find that you can easily like let go and enjoy yourself.
Yeah. You're not stressed over
stressed.
either losing it or not losing it.
No, because you know, and they would report you. My goodness, if you go to if they come to the British Embassy and the High Commission, and then they go like, oh, I want this, I want that, and you don't help them, they would call the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office in the UK and go like, this person doesn't want to help me.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, because some of them had the most outrageous request. I think one time somebody mentioned that she's transiting in Ghana. So she wanted to come and leave her bags at the High Commission because she has a friend in Ghana she wants to see.
What?
She wanted to leave her bag, go see the friend, come back, come and shower and dress up, because I think it was a 1-day layover or something. She had chosen a 1-day layover for that.
Oh my God.
I was like, what?
You were like, this can't be real.
Oh no, it was just it was a wild thing. So back to the guy's story. So he was just uncooperative, and I mean, the guy was just I think he had made up his mind he didn't want to go back. Because I think, so listening to his story, I think we are trying to find, because we had to send him back to family, and somebody had to incur the cost of him returning, right? So but he was like, I don't have a place to stay. I think he was just lying about a lot of stuff. So we finally reached out to his nephew, right? So to be able to give you because we're going to give him an emergency fund and everything, and to be able to do that, we had to know where he was going to stay. And he said he had rented out his place because he thought he's found love, he's coming to enjoy for 6 months.
Yeah. So
he had leased out his place, he couldn't go back there, so he then found a nephew. So we finally called the nephew, and then this guy was trying to be sly and be like, just tell them I'll stay with you, but I won't stay with you. And I'm like, look, we're trying to help you. So the nephew, apparently he has been scammed so many times. When I was at the hospital with him, and I called him we called him and we're like, this is I work with the British High Commission, this is not a scam. He really didn't believe me. So he actually called the Foreign Commonwealth Office in UK, and they redirected the call to Ghana just to confirm my identity, which was insane. I was like, wait, really? He was like, yeah. And then I think that's when the nephew broke down that he traveled and they've been looking for him, and they had warned him against coming because they were like, this sounds like a scam. But my guy was in love.
He was
on the first flight. So when we finally convinced him that look, if you stay here, it's jail time for you. So just pack up and go, and then let things settle. I think he had to pay a fine and a few other stuff, and they will let him back into the country. And the guy goes like, okay, so you said I can come back in 6 months. I'll be back in 6 months. So he's counting the days to return.
To return to the loved one.
Yeah, which was insane.
Cupid did quite a number on him.
So I think when he came in, he didn't find someone. I mean, I think he found another girl.
Oh my!
So he wanted to come back and be with that girl. So I was like, come on, dude. One love didn't go well. Do you really think this one will? But I mean, that's the power of love, I guess. So that was one of my crazy
things.
Yeah, that was one of the crazy stories. And there was so many love. I don't know what has happened in the UK, but they're really fall in love with a lot of Africans.
Oh my gosh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so they
in Ghana.
Oh yes, in Ghana, in Nigeria. Pretty much West Africa, yeah.
Wow.
But Ghana, I don't know for the other embassies, but we get a lot of that. Oh my goodness, they'll just come with a with the idea of, I mean, I think some of them even actually come and actually marry the people. Right.
Really?
Yeah, I've heard a couple of stories like that. Yeah, they come and they marry the person. But the issue now is because of their age and because of like the huge age gap, when they try to take their wife back or their partner back, it's like the visa section goes like, oh, this looks like a marriage of convenience. So yeah, so that
Oh.
becomes a whole issue. And then they call us and go like, why you not giving us my wife the visa? Why you giving my partner the visa? We want to go back. But I think the UK government is realizing like this is another trend of people are using to emigrate to the UK.
Gosh.
So they're trying to like curb that and make sure that there's no, yeah. But that was one hell of a year.
Oh my God.
It was.
So I'm sure you don't miss it now that you're here.
Oh no, I don't. So I mean, after that, I was like, I mean, there were opportunities and other opportunities to stay, but I was like, I really don't want because I was exhausted by that point, and by then I wanted to just focus on swimming, and I was working with a friend who has a swim school,
Mm-hmm.
so we were like I was coaching kids to like
Nice.
swim and stuff like that. So I was like, no, I just want like a different space of mind and all of that. So I did that for another year, and then after that, I was like, okay, I'm ready to go back in. And then I got a job with the Brazilian embassy.
Oh,
So
hi.
yeah, in Ghana as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And
So
what was your line of work with the Brazilian embassy?
so similar. So I was a consular officer and a digital communications officer,
Mhm.
right? So basically, for them, it was more about visa processing, visa analysis. So it was about looking at the trends with which people were applying for visas, how we can make it better, and
Mhm.
how to like kind of spot like the little things we could spot with like fraudulent visas, fraudulent applications, and putting in like checks and balances to make sure that like because you have some companies who would come like, oh, this group of people want to travel on a visa or something like that,
Yeah.
and then when we give it to them, the people would like not return when they get to Brazil, or they'll just use it for another thing, like they'll try and get to another Latin American country.
Mm.
So it was about putting together like policies and stuff like that to be able to go like, okay, so this is another trend. So you had to like study the trends and then like figure out like it. So these people may be coming on like a fraudulent basis or something like that. Yeah.
So would you say that that experience was less stressful than the one with the British High Commission?
Oh, 100%.
That's good.
I mean, for that one, I was just studying. So with the British High Commission, you had to like take like the initiative. People came with you with their problems, and you had to go like figure out solutions, right?
Mm.
But with this one, I just had to study it. Be like, okay, this and this and this and this. Then I just go give it to my boss. This is what I've studied in this application. Take a decision, right?
Yeah.
So that was just, I wasn't the final like decision maker, which was nice
Right.
and like a different pace. And I mean, because it's a much smaller embassy, there wasn't like a lot of pressure. And another thing was with the Brazilians, they bless their hearts, they really don't. I don't want to say don't care, but they are of the opinion that when you turn 18, you're on your own.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Yeah.
You get it. So that was like, yeah, this feels more African to me.
Nice.
So you could have people.
It's close to home.
Yeah, because so you could have people call, or like somebody would visit and go like, their child is like they can't hear from their child again, and then our response was like, well, the child is an adult, so maybe they don't want to talk to you or something, right? Because we couldn't interfere. You can't technically interfere in an adult person's life, right? So that was like a whole different pace. I was like, oh, so like for that side, the visa section was more prominent, and then the consular was a bit. So the consular, we were just issuing like new passport because you had Brazilian citizens in Ghana, so it was more about passport analysis, and then I think we had more of birth certificates. So it was mainly like the standard consular services to Brazilian citizens. You had some Brazilians come and adopt kids from Sierra Leone, so it's about facilitating the process to carry the child back to Brazil and all of that, which is we were very interested. I'd never handled adoption cases, so that was nice. Yeah.
But you know what's interesting? you're now back in school and you've had such a rich experience in between your undergraduate year and your graduate years,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, how does it feel right now to be in the classroom, back at it again, you know?
It feels pretty overwhelming. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's like a different pace. So I mean, kind of, I'm like, I have to go back to like, I mean, I was reading and everything, but like the reading materials, the fact that I am back in school. I mean, it's just been, come to think of it, it's just been like 3 years since I left
Gosh.
school, and then I'm
Yeah.
back in school. So I think it's a welcome change from like the whole work world,
Hmm.
because I've had a crazy run at
Oh, you
it.
sure have. You sure have.
Yeah, so it's a nice like just like to take a step back, and like this is more, so this is allowing me to have a bit of like me time and a bit of like my like self-preservation, and just to
Mhm.
like focus on something I want to do, not something other people expect me to do, because with work it was more of expected to do this and do that, but this
Yeah.
time I can like focus my interest and then hopefully get into a field where I find interest in, which is pretty nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And would you say that the environment that you're in right now, be it Raleigh, the university, or otherwise, I mean, is that sort of similar to what you're accustomed to in Ghana, or is it different in many ways that you're like, man, I have to adjust to this?
It's a little bit of both, I would say.
Mm.
I mean, there is a nice Ghanaian community here, which is very helpful. I mean, my
Oh.
roommate is a Ghanaian, so one of my roommates is a Ghanaian, so which is nice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She
Was
also
was
came.
that by chance, or did you guys coordinate?
No, it was by chance actually.
Really?
Yeah, because she had a roommate who, so she was there with like two other people,
Uh-huh.
and one of them got married and decided to move out. So the lease just happened to become available. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw it. So by the time I reached out to her, not knowing that her roommate was Ghanaian. So I came and then I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, and she's really nice. So it's
Yeah.
it's very interesting. So I would say it's a little bit of both. I mean, my first year abroad experience was okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we didn't really meet the Ghanaian community, but over here, like there is like a strong Ghanaian community who will be like, okay, so this is how things go around here and all of that. With regards to the schooling system, it's vastly different
Mm-hmm.
from what I'm used to, right? Because back home, I mean, we had a sense of like your expectations, and I would say it's a bit more like the teachers would the teachers kind of had like I'm trying to put it in a nice way. So the professors.
Okay, put it in a bad or nice way. It doesn't matter.
So the idea in Ghana, and I think in a lot of African countries, is the professors always are right and they have like this specific answer they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I find here the professors are looking for your opinion.
Right.
The professors are like, yeah, tell me what you think. And I'm like, what do you want to hear? Whatever you're saying is correct. Like, just teach me. But so it was, I mean, that was, getting used to that was interesting, like at the beginning, because it was like, okay, so I had to keep reminding myself that there is no wrong answer.
Mm.
That is the thing.
Mm.
In Ghana, you find that there is a right and wrong answer.
Yeah.
Right. But for me, maybe it's also because of the differences in courses.
Mm-hmm.
But I find in Ghana you couldn't easily like disagree with your lecturer. I did that once in class, and it was like a whole thing.
Oh.
And I didn't want to do it again.
Did they like public shame you?
Well, not particularly, but then I could tell like the professor was like almost offended. And I find that I do that a lot. I really like doing that. I remember in my primary school, I did that to my ICT teacher.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, this was the answer. And I went heaven and hell. I was like, no, I want to get this mark. And this is wrong. And then he came back the next day. I think he had gone to research and realized that, oh, she was right. And then came to like, she was correct. And so you guys should make sure that you are that outspoken. I'm like, bro, just give me my score. Right. And I did that so every experience I've had doing that, I did that in my secondary school as well, right? Where I think I disagreed with a teacher who we were doing poems or something, and he was trying to analyze the poem in a way I didn't agree. But then also, like half of the class was dozing off, and it was just me and the teacher. Like, I'm like, no, sir, this is not correct.
Oh gosh, you guys are going at it.
Right? But in both experiences, I found that, and even the university, I found that the teachers didn't really like being told they were not told they were wrong, but didn't like having a different opinion to theirs.
Yeah.
Which was interesting to see. And I think it's a cultural thing, because in most African countries you find like the respect to elders is like on another level.
Yeah, like respect authority, traditional authority.
Yes, you can't really. Well, here the professor like, oh, call me Mitten, call me this, call me that. Don't worry about the titles. Like, tell me your opinion. I'm like, okay, but you're gonna be upset about it later. Like, no, I want to hear from you. I'm like,
it's genuine. No, that's genuine.
It is genuine, and from someone from an African country, it's nice, but I think it's gonna get some getting used to, because you can talk, but to some degree, even in class, I don't know if people have noticed, but I try to like choose my words correctly, because I really do not want to offend the professor.
Right. No, but honestly, I don't think you would.
Yeah, so I think that is also another thing that's a really welcome change. I mean, it's nice to know that like I really am grateful that I decided to do my graduate studies outside of Ghana, because I'm thinking of it, this level of work in Ghana, I'd be so upset, because I would have to think that my professor needs, like, I would have questions and I wouldn't be able to reach out to my professor. I would have this. I don't know, maybe because I didn't do a graduate level there. Maybe the professors are different at the graduate level. But for my undergrad, I wasn't too impressed. So I was like, nah, I really want to just do my graduate studies elsewhere. So which was nice, yeah.
Nice. Well, I'm so glad that you made that decision, and I do want to thank you for your time in this great conversation.
I think we've gone a lot, yeah.
No, I really enjoyed it. We explored so many different territories, and I again, I'm honored that you decided to do this with me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.